All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today we're looking at the 2021 Mountain West Conference Championship game. 4-point line in favor of San Diego State is the Utah State Aggies will come to Carson, California to take on the Aztecs. 50.5 over-under, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. In series history, 13-2 all-time in favor of the Aztecs, and they had a blowout winner a season ago. Jumping right into the Utah State offense, this is a bunch that averages over 32 points per game. Running the ball, it's a part of their offense, but they don't exactly do it at a high level. They had 3 200-plus yard games in the month of September. They've had 0 since. Calvin Tyler, he's a good runner. He's shifty. He's a smaller guy. He can run between the tackles, but this offense is centered around a strong passing game led by Logan Bonner. He came over with Brent Anderson from Arkansas State, having a phenomenal year, 3,200-plus yards, 32 touchdowns. They really spread it out. 4 different wide receivers will get touches. Justin McGriff, he gets involved. Derek Wright, but more importantly, Devin Tompkins. He is one of the nation's best pass catchers. This guy's a big play waiting to happen. Over 1,500 yards, almost 90 receptions on the year. He is a big playmaker. He's one of my favorite guys to watch, averaging over 18 yards per catch this season. I give back to their running game. They average about 156 yards per contest, but they thrive by throwing the football, moving it with tempo. They like to, throw it deep, but more importantly, quick plays on the boundary, in the middle of the field, curls, slants, shorter routes to get the ball to guys, and then they go with tempo, and that's how they move, kind of a spread option look. That's what the Aggies roll with. So they don't run the ball particularly well, but it is a part of their game. Logan Bonner, he's plenty capable with his legs. Early in the year, they ran a 2-quarterback system, him and Andrew Peasley. It's kind of died down as the weeks have went on. You don't see much of Peasley whatsoever compared to the early months of the year. It's a very good offense, though. Bonner, he's been running it for years with Anderson from their days at Arkansas State. This is a very good unit. So balance, I think, it's there. It's admirable. But again, they're going to be centered around the pass. More importantly, though, the offensive line is incredible. It's struggled badly. It's been a little better in pass protection than it has at generating holes in the running game, but it's not a strength whatsoever. It's a big weakness, especially in this game with the defensive front they're going to be facing. We'll get to them a little later on, but this is a really good offense. In the trenches, though, it's a weakness for them, and that's really probably going to dictate how this game goes. The San Diego State offense, it's really not great. I don't really know what their identity is because over time it's always been to run the ball and do it very well for 250 yards per game. This year, it's been a different story. Greg Bell is a very good runner, especially on the edge. He's a very talented back, one of the best in the conference, but they've really struggled to run the ball as of late. The offensive line, they are big. They're not really that physical, it seems, because it's not translating to many holes, not a lot of running lanes, and that's not their identity whatsoever. So I'm not exactly sure what it is at this moment in time. Jordan Brookshire in the Boise State game, he took over in that second half. The offense wasn't bad with Logan Johnson, but he was a little beat up. They went with Brookshire, and he was very good in that second half. They don't have a downfield passing attack. They had one with him in that game. He's been very good with his legs as well. He played phenomenal in that win over Boise State. They clinched their berth in this title game. The passing attack, though, they're one of the nation's worst in terms of downfield passing. They're not very good. They got some playmakers, though. Jesse Matthews, tight end Daniel Bellinger. They got a few good weapons. Nobody, though, on the team averages more than 15 yards per catch. They do not get downfield very good at all. The running game, though, that's where it's going to start and that's where it's going to end. You're going to see Brookshire. I'm assuming he's going to get the start. He looked very good in this game to get them here. Lucas Johnson, that is. He is a former Georgia Tech player. He's recruited to play the option under Paul Johnson. So I wasn't very sure why he was starting to begin with. I think Brookshire is the better option. You'll see running back Jordan Byrd get involved a bit. Although their offensive line has struggled to create running lanes, they've been pretty solid in pass protection, definitely much better than Utah State has been. So I do think they have a bit of an edge there. They average about 28 points per game. Is the Aztecs, despite not having a real identity, they're not terrible on offense. They find a way to make plays, and they get it done. So props to the Aztecs. San Diego State defense is one of the nation's best. These guys are elite. Boise State, they had some success vertically on the boundary. The secondary, their playmaking is pretty good. Trenton Thompson, Patrick McMorris, Taylor Hawkins, they have some really good playmakers. McMorris, he's the team's leading tackler. He also had 2 picks in the last game. So they got playmakers in all facets of the game. Giving up big plays, though, has been a struggle at times in this game, and it was against the Broncos as well. They pitched a shutout in the second half. Their defensive line really turned it on, started controlling the line of scrimmage, and they allowed 0 points to Boise State, who kind of had them on their heels in that first half. Man coverage, that's kind of an issue for them. I don't think that's going to really work out much here against Utah State if they try to roll out with that, especially against Devon Tompkins. He's very good, and he will make you pay. I really like this front seven, though. These guys are elite. They've only allowed over 400 yards once this year. That was to Fresno State. They're kind of facing a similar team here in a sense. They're great against the run, though. The most yards they've allowed all year is 195 to the nation's top rushing offense. I'm pretty sure Air Force is still ranked number 1, if not they're in the top 3. They only give them 195 yards to those guys, and that's a high-volume running attack. So that's highly impressive stuff. The Aztecs do not give up anything on the ground at all. Cam Thomas coming off the edge. Will Anderson from Bama's having a big year. This guy is as well, though, stacking the stat sheet. 20 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks. Jonah Tavai, he had 3 against the Broncos. Keyshawn Banks, he's also very important for this defensive line's success. These guys are nasty. Cade McDonald, linebacker. These guys are very, very good. That's another key is how their offensive line. I mentioned a minute ago how the Aggies' offensive line is a big key, and this is why this defensive front is no joke. They're incredibly gnarly. A below-average unit the Aztecs are facing. They figure to have a big advantage here. Their secondary, though, they have struggled a bit. I think if the Aggies' offensive line can hold up moderately, keep this defensive front neutralized a bit, they'll have a chance to make some plays downfield. That's not a given, though, but it's just something to note. The Aztecs at times have not been good at defending the pass downfield. Looking at Utah State's defense, it's the complete opposite. They're dead last in the conference in yards per play. They allowed 600-plus yards to Wyoming at home 2 weeks ago. I mean, this defense has really struggled a lot this year, especially against the run. They had a 3-game stretch earlier in the year. They had held opponents to under 50 yards running the ball. 3 straight games, they were just dominant. And the Cowboys came to town and they ran it all over them, 300-plus yards. I think it might have even hit the 400-yard mark. You've seen that theme early in the year. I remember watching that BYU game where Tyler Allergy could not be stopped. They couldn't tackle him. He averaged 10, 11 yards per carry. They struggle big time against the run. They do lead the Mountain West in tackles for loss, though. Nick Henniger off the edge, he's their best playmaker from a defensive end standpoint. Justin Rice, he also came over with Logan Bonner from Arkansas State. He's a phenomenal player. He does everything for them. You want him to drop back in coverage, he'll do it. You want him to come off the edge, come through the interior and make plays. Justin Rice can do it all. He leads them in tackles. He's also got double-figure tackles for loss. Justin Rice, I think he actually led the nation in tackles 1 year at Arkansas State. This guy's phenomenal. Or I think it was tackles for loss. I don't know. I know he had a lot of statistics. This guy does a lot for whatever team he plays for. Justin Rice, heck of a playmaker. He is the backbone of this football team. The secondary, though, they're not, secondaries aren't exactly polished, neither of them. Utah State, though, they struggle big time underneath, but they've only allowed 10 30-plus pass plays. That's 15th in FBS. They don't, they give up a lot of yards, but this veteran safety duo of Shaq Bond and then, the Michigan transfer Hunter Reynolds, these guys are very good at communicating, understanding their assignments. They don't allow a lot of big plays whatsoever. And one of their biggest that's probably their biggest strength on defense. It's not really going to translate, though, because that's a giant weakness for San Diego State, so it's not like that's a big part of their offense to begin with. It is something to note, though, especially how they performed against Boise State. They had numerous big passing plays. That's the first. Their passing game's actually been getting better as the season has went on over the last month or so here. So it's something to note, but when your biggest weakness kind of or when your biggest strength plays to their weakness, it's hard to really get an edge because these guys are going to have to slow down the run. And I think the DBs will hold up in man coverage. I think they're going to have to get these DBs involved in the run game a bit, though. That's what Boise State was doing, and they're having some good success doing so on Friday against the Aztecs. You're going to have to look to see them do that. They got playmakers. They're plenty capable of doing so. So I think that's kind of the game plan for the Aggies defense in this one. Team comparisons. We'll go over this one really quickly. Logan Bonner easily gets the edge at quarterback over Brookshire or Johnson. I think Greg Bell is a better player than Calvin Tyler. They're both phenomenal running backs. Chance Bell, Jordan Bird, you'll see those guys get involved too. I like the Aztecs at running back. Pass catchers, Justin McGriff, Devin Tompkins, Derek Wright. They have 4 different guys. I think they have 30-plus receptions. They get everybody involved. That's very obvious. And I think I noted nobody averages more than 15 yards per catch on the Aztecs, so receiver is instantly going to go to them. Offensive line, defensive line, the trenches belong to the Aztecs. They've been dominating all year on the defensive front. The offensive line been a little shaky at times, but I'd say they're much better than the Aggies. Up front, at linebacker, they also get the edge, even though Justin Rice is probably the best linebacker in this game. These guys are phenomenal at slowing down the run, something the Aggies can't do. And then the secondary goes to the Aztecs. I think they have 14 interceptions on the year as a secondary. These guys are very good at making plays. Inconsistencies are kind of plaguing them from time to time, but altogether, great defensive secondary. Entire defensive unit for the Aztecs is elite. Final thoughts and the prediction on this game. For Utah State, they're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. I think that you have to neutralize that dynamic front four, really, for the Aztecs, because you have to have time to make some plays downfield. That's been a big problem for them, is their pass protection. Bonders took a lot of hits this year. That's their only shot in this game, is to protect up front. I think they need to slow down the run game too. I think some of those DBs will come down in effort of doing so, because no, the Aztecs have not been running the ball very well as of late, but this matchup favors right into their game plan and their style of offense. So they got to be willing to be able to do that. And for the Aztecs, limit the big plays in the passing game. We just mentioned that. If the defensive front does their work, the secondary is going to be very thankful to have them doing so, because this is a dynamic receiving core. These guys are very good. Good quarterback in Logan Bonner. So just limit the big passing plays in the game, and the defense, I think they'll be pretty good. Final score prediction, I'm going to go 31-26 for the Aztecs. I think San Diego State will win this game. Coming up with a score is kind of hard. I don't know. I think Utah State, though, they're going to play this one close. I don't know. I just don't think their offensive line is going to be up for the challenge of protecting against this dominant defensive front. That's going to be the edge for the Aztecs. The overall edge in the trenches will be what propels them to a victory in a Mountain West championship. That'll be all for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.